Good evening, everyone. It's nice to be here at the Indian Creek PTO meeting tonight, and it might seem a little silly for those of you sitting in the audience that we're using the microphone, but we are taping this evening to post to our website, so those individuals that can't be with us tonight could see the presentation. We did record this presentation a couple of weeks ago during a Lion Learning session, but we had such great questions that evening that we wanted to make sure that we updated our slide deck to reflect the questions that we were getting, hence the reason we're videotaping it again. So I'm Amy Kortmeyer. I'm the proud new superintendent at Linn-Mar Community School District. This is my second stint in the school district. I served here from 2008 to 2015 as the elementary director of curriculum, and I'm just so pleased and honored to have been rewarded with this awesome position and awesome responsibility to be your superintendent. But tonight we're here, I'm here along with Jonathan Galbraith. He's our new COO for the school district, and we have a very important vote coming up. It is called the Physical Plant and Equipment Levy. We like to call it the PPEL vote, and we're here tonight just to inform you of the funds and the different funding buckets that make up Iowa school finance so that you have a general understanding of what we're asking the voters for. This is a levy that is currently in place. It's currently part of your tax rate, and every 10 years we need to go out and ask for voter approval again. So we want to tell you more about that this evening. So without further ado, I'll let John introduce himself once I turn the mic over to him, but we're going to get started. And this next slide, if you're not aware, I'm guessing you're completely aware, we do have 12 attendance centers in the district, 7 wonderful elementary buildings. We're sitting in one tonight, 2 almost brand new intermediate schools, 2 middle schools, and 1 high school. And beyond that, we have other facilities that we also need to think about keeping up to date, whether that's our aquatic center, our beautiful football and track, soccer stadium, our operations and management facilities. So we've got a lot of kind of square footage and acres to take care of, and we're going to be talking more about that here shortly. John?
As Amy said, I'm John Galbraith. I'm the CFO, COO. Relatively new. I've been here since September and kind of dove right in head first, and a lot of work to do, which makes the days exciting. And as Amy said, I'm happy to be here as well. So with that, we'll just start here by taking a look at the different funds that every school district has or has the opportunity to have, is probably better put. So the first one there, we'll just start at the top and go down to the bottom, the general fund. So that's our largest fund. That's funded by property taxes, state aid, miscellaneous income. The expenses for that are salaries, benefits, materials, utilities, etc. Salaries and benefits make up 80% of the general fund. So that's the fund that pays for all of our wonderful staff. Next, there is management fund. That's also funded by property taxes. That is a pretty strict fund, and the uses for it, it's limited to liability insurance, property insurance, early separation agreements, and those sorts of things. So pretty small expenses for that. Next is our PERL fund, which is our public education recreation levy, and that is a 13.5 cent property tax. There's not very many districts in the state that have that. Linn-Mar does have it. Last year in the legislative session, they capped that. So they said if you have it currently, you can keep it, but you can no longer vote for it. So those school districts that don't have it can no longer even vote to get that. Like I said, funded by property taxes. That's for playgrounds and recreational spaces. Most recently, that paid for the new tennis, or part of the new tennis courts over by Oak Ridge. Next fund there is PPEL fund, and we'll talk more in detail about that, but that is funded by property taxes, and expenses are building construction, vehicles, equipment greater than $500, technology, food service equipment, and we'll go in more depth with the other expenses there here in just a bit. The debt service fund, that comes from property taxes or transfers, and that pays all of our debt, principal, and interest payments. Then we have the SAVE, or the Capital Projects Fund. That's funded by sales tax or bond proceeds. That's the sales tax fund, so the 1 cent penny statewide tax that we pay for goods. That's what that fund is. and that is for capital projects, technology, very similar expenses along with PPEL. The expenses in those just about run in tandem. We have the student activity fund, admissions, fundraising, student dues are the revenues there, and that supports all of our co-curricular activities. And we have the nutrition fund, meal sales, and then federal and state reimbursements are the revenues, and that pays for all things food service. So it buys our food, it pays for our employees, so on and so forth. And then two other kind of unique funds to Linn-Mar here is the school store, the Roar store, and the community pool or the aquatic center. So those are what we call enterprise funds. So the revenues for that are, for example, at the store, it's the goods they sell. At the aquatic center, it would be fees that they charge for teams to come in and for events there, fees for swimming lessons, and those sorts of things. And then the expenses are what support that facility there. So this is looking at all the revenues across all those funds that we just talked about. Last year, Linn-Mar had just under $167 million in revenue. 40% of that came from state aid, and just under 26% of that came from property taxes. Then if we look at expenditures across all funds, we're about 55% in salaries, just under 10% in benefits there, and purchase services come in about 15%. And then we look at PPEL. So this dates back to FY16, which would be the 2015-16 school year. And that's when our current round of PPEL that we have right now started taking place. So you can see there that that graph is kind of all over the place. So this is taking into account all revenues. So not only our PPEL property taxes, but then this also takes into account some interest income. And then the biggest one there that has caused a couple of those spikes is insurance proceeds. So when we have damage to our buildings, we submit an insurance claim, the money that comes back in goes into the fund that the expense came out of. So your ratio in FY21 is the biggest spike there. So all the damage to the buildings, that was a construction project to fix those, right? So those had to come out of PPEL, so the revenue goes back in. That's some of the ups and the downs there and why that isn't kind of a consistent growth. If we looked at just the property tax payments that came in, there would just be very steady growth to that. So I wanted to make sure I explained why there's that huge peak, and some of the other ones there look to be a little more than previous years. So this is looking at the expenses, and they don't quite mirror what the revenues are, but a lot of that there is, again, because of different things that have happened over time. The insurance expense, or due to insurance expenses that we've paid for projects, and some other things there. So I'm going to touch on just a couple of these here real quick. So the red bar there is our capital projects. So that pays for any roofs, concrete projects, updates to restrooms, new lockers in some buildings, updates to some IMCs, and those sorts of things. That's what we call capital projects. The other one that I want to touch on is the yellow one, and that's probably the second largest there. So on the inception of this round of PPEL, they took a loan out for a part of a project up at the high school. So we pay a debt payment every year for that. Other things that are included historically have been some transportation and vehicles. We normally buy 3 to 4 buses a year out of the PPEL fund. So technology, non-instructional software, printers and copiers come out of the PPEL fund. And then there's some maintenance repair expenses, food and nutrition, some minor expenses, and then we do have a couple lease agreements that also come out of PPEL. So we have FY24 up there, which is the current fiscal year that we're in right now, and that's how we plan to use those funds this year. And then I have proposed FY25 and proposed FY26. So as you can see, those are fairly similar in how we plan on using those, but a little bit different kind of as we move forward. So one thing that I also want to talk about is on the bottom, I have maintenance repairs / projects. So that was that large red bar that we saw in the historical expenses. So with that, we don't detail those out right now. Being every year things come up that we can't predict the future, that we do have to maintain a little bit of flexibility there, that we can assess as things get closer, say, what is our highest need right now? And I could say the same thing about the roofing projects too. You know, that's going to pay to fix roofs as we get just repair type things in them. But as far as what roof I'm going to replace in 5 years, we don't know that. We try to evaluate that as that gets closer. Same for the maintenance and the repair projects. What is our greatest need now? And we want to be able to maintain a little bit of that flexibility to make those decisions as they come up. So what is PPEL? Amy touched on this a little bit, but PPEL is a physical plant equipment levy. It's our main revenue source used to maintain our infrastructure investments. It can come in two forms. So the first is a board-approved 33-cent per thousand valuation levy, and the second is the voter-approved with a maximum of $1.34 per thousand of assessed taxable valuation. So that's what we currently have. This vote in March will be asking voters if they would like to extend that levy or not. So the uses of the PPEL funds. So these are the legal uses. Iowa Code spells out for all of our funds what legal expenses are for all of those funds. So would be that description broken down into a bullet point form. So it's for the purchase and improvement of grounds, constructing schoolhouses or buildings, opening roads to schoolhouses or buildings, the purchase of a single piece of equipment exceeding $500 in value, paying debts contracted for the erection or construction of schoolhouses or buildings, procuring or acquisition of libraries, repairing, remodeling, reconstructing, improving, or expanding the schoolhouses or buildings in additions to schoolhouses or buildings, expenditures for energy conservation, renting facilities, purchasing transportation equipment for transporting students, lease purchase option agreements for school buildings or equipment. So that was the legal definitions. This is kind of going to be in, I guess, more terms of how Linn-Mar has used these in the past and how we plan on using the funds going forward as well. So the improvement of grounds, roof repairs and replacement, parking lot repairs and replacement, HVAC repairs and upgrades, lease agreements, bus purchases, technology equipment, electrical repairs and upgrades, window replacement, door replacement, plumbing repairs and upgrades, energy conservation projects, minor remodeling, food service equipment, and operations and maintenance equipment. So we've really used these funds in some sort of way, amount across all those things that we talked about, and that's really what our plan is to go forward. PPEL is really the one fund that we look at to keep our buildings in the shape that we've all been accustomed to them being. You know, there's a lot of nice buildings here at Linn-Mar, and the PPEL fund has really done a lot of nice things to keep them in the shape that they are today.
So those last few slides that John went through, notating, you know, what Iowa Code allows us to spend PPEL on, those were, if you couldn't tell, actual pictures from across the district, from our buildings and actual projects. So I think that was a nice touch to try to, if you can't get into all of our buildings, you can take a peek at what some of those projects have been. But the next couple of slides really detail why that continued, we have a continued need for that, to have that levy in place. And as you think about historically for Linn-Mar, we are a district that's continued to grow over time. And this slide shows back to 2014. We are about 1,000, we were up about 1,000 students from 2014. We had a slight dip this past year. We're down about 118 students. We know that we are down some students due to the Every Student Succeeds Act. With the vouchers, we had, of those 118, 54 of those students were with us last year, and then we're losing some to open enrollment. But by and large, we're a growing district. That's been our story for a long time now. So with a growing district, it also means you've been adding attendance centers. And the next slide talks about the fact that we've increased our square footage from about 988,000 to 1,250,000. And this gives you just a little bit of a historic picture of where we've been with our district square footage. Of course, in 2020, 2021 is when we opened both Hazel Point and Boulder Peak and acquired that additional square footage.
So $1.34 per $1,000 valuation. So how much money will that generate? So in this current fiscal year, FY24, that will generate $3.5 million. So then if we think about 10 years from now, how much will that generate? That'll generate roughly $4.7 million, and that's based on the district's taxable valuation. So the value of the land within the school district would grow by 3.5% per year. And over the last 10 years, we were just slightly above 3.5%, so we feel pretty confident that that trend would continue. And this is the ballot language. I'm not going to read through all this. Most of this stuff I have talked about. It's a lot of the legal language on how we plan on using the PPEL funds. And then this is exactly what you'll see on the ballot. If you do want to read through this, it is up on our website. If you just go to our Linn-Mar website and just search PPEL, I believe there's a link right on the main page. And this is on there along with a lot of other information as well. Polling locations, so where to vote. This QR code, if you scan that, it'll take you to the Secretary of State website. You put your address in and it'll tell you where to go. Being a federal election year, that might change a little bit, maybe different from the last time you voted. So we didn't want to list all of the polling locations in case something did change, but that's the website that they update quite frequently, so you'll know exactly where to go to vote. There's also a link on our PPEL website as well, if you go to there, or you can just go to the Secretary of State page, Secretary of State in Iowa page, and you'll be able to find that information too. Okay, fingers crossed this works. I'm like 0 for 2 on this so far, so.
Greetings everyone, I am Amy Kortmeyer and I'm so very proud to be the superintendent of the Linn-Mar Community School District. Together we celebrate the dedicated work of our amazing students, teachers, and staff. Along with the people, we sometimes take for granted the facilities and services we offer our students that require our attention and our resources. You may have noticed these signs across our campuses. PPEL, the Physical Plant and Equipment Levy, is a way we finance certain projects, like this parking lot expansion here at Linn-Mar High School.
The Physical Plant and Equipment Levy is used to pay to improve school buildings and grounds, purchase technology, safety equipment, and other specific needs. Thanks to your continued support, PPEL has been in place for a long time here at Linn-Mar. The current PPEL will expire in June of 2025, so now is the time to renew it for another 10 years. A renewal of the levy will be on the ballot in a special election on March 5th.
Before you go to the polls, we want to show you some of the many ways we have used PPEL funds over the past few years to benefit the students, teachers, and staff here at Linn-Mar.
Here at the Transportation Department, PPEL funds have allowed us to maintain our transportation fleet and help purchase 3 to 4 school buses each year.
Keeping our athletic facilities up to date and in playing condition also takes money. PPEL funds were recently used to sand and refinish our main gym floor here at the high school.
Iowa's weather can be rough on any building, and we have 15 to maintain. This 20-year-old roof at Oak Ridge was replaced this past summer using PPEL money. PPEL helps us update our building's fire alarm systems, make HVAC repairs, and tuck point our exterior walls.
Here at Boulder Peak and in all our schools, PPEL funds help pay for vacuum cleaners, floor scrubbers, and other equipment that help keep our buildings in tip-top shape.
Thanks to your continued support of PPEL, our students and teachers have benefited from updated furnishings in our classrooms and commons areas here at the high school and throughout the district.
PPEL funding has played a part in recent changes here at Wilkins and some of our other elementary buildings. These include updated lockers, restrooms, flooring, and some other improvements.
Thanks to PPEL, we have the equipment to help maintain the turf here at the stadium. Across all our school grounds, over 200 plus acres, lawnmowers, snowplows, and snow blowers keep things looking good in the summer and help us avoid slippery sidewalks and driveways in the winter.
Hi, I'm here at Novak Elementary. PPEL funds partially support the technology here and throughout the district. It can pay for things like technology hardware, hosting services, equipment leases, copiers, and updated security systems.
We hope this tour helps you understand how we use the Physical Plant and Equipment Levy all across our district. As you can see, it is essential. We pride ourselves on being fiscally conservative and using our funds wisely. We know it takes time to vote, but we hope that you head to the polls on March 5th. Thank you for your time today.
That's our presentation, so thank you guys for your time, and we will open it up for questions if anybody has any questions.
What happens if you don't get it approved? Like, what are we going to lose out on?
Yep. So the question is what happens if the PPEL isn't extended? So we have another capital improvement fund, the SAVE fund, that we would be able to pay for those things that come up. Really what that would do is any of our larger improvements that we may have planned for the future, we would have to delay those. The other thing that could potentially happen is instead of making a long-term fix, which would be the right decision in some cases, we may just have to go to a break fix and a Band-Aid approach just to limp us by because we won't have the funding in order to fix something properly.
Would you share those couple of major projects that we're funding out of SAVE right now and how that would have been impacted?
Yeah, so right now we have two major projects out of SAVE. The new administration building, so that's a SAVE funded project, and then the performance center at the high school, the new concert hall, so that bids tomorrow. So those are two of the projects that are coming out of there. So if PPEL wouldn't be extended, those types of projects would have to be put on hold so that we can attempt to keep up and maintaining the buildings that we have. So
Those projects are not on hold. We are not saying that.
yes, those two projects are going, but it'd be the future projects after that that we would really have to think about. Do you have any more? No. Any other questions?
One of the line items was for the next 3 years was security improvements. I know the state's offering, I think, $50,000 per building. So that 250 projected for the next 3 years would be in addition to that.
Yes, correct.
What kinds of things are you looking to do?
Yep, so that $50,000 per building, so we kind of have three categories of projects that we're trying to implement district-wide. So that $50,000 per building that we, from that grant from the state, wouldn't cover all of that. So we're going to want to supplement that with PPEL funds so that we can get all of our buildings kind of up to that level playing field. And that would be another then example of, then we'll reevaluate to say, what else should we do? So our plan is to have those dollars continue through this life cycle of PPEL and not just the first 3 years that you see up there, but reevaluate it after we get those set projects done to say, what's next? What's the next highest need in the district?
So you'd be using the evaluations that were done with the suggestions for each building?
Correct.
Working your way through those, prioritizing?
Yep, okay. Yep. And any other needs that come up, technology changes quick, and some cameras we have and those types of things, being able to stay up to date on those too, in addition to what the recommendations from the assessments were.
One thing that you might not be aware of is each of our buildings do receive the $50,000. We can't pool the money. So if we could pool the money, you might think of the approach being we're going to have standardized expectation for cameras, the cost of district. And we're just not able to do that. And so when we have the different ages of our buildings, we know that some of our buildings are better set with security, right? So like John said, we're going to go out, spend the funds, but look at that assessment to try to bring everybody up to the same threshold as we move through that grant initially. Then from there, we'll be taking a look at what additional security features.
So Boulder Peak and Hazel Point, for example, would probably have better security overall because they're newer buildings.
Correct.
They get the same 50 from the state that the school as old as Indian Creek would get.
Absolutely correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Good questions. Anybody else?
Just curious, why is it on March 5th? Like, why a random March?
Yep, so I'm not sure how many legislative sessions ago, but the state legislators said you can hold elections on the first Tuesday in March, or the second Tuesday in September, or the first Tuesday in November. Not for this, you can't. So, or November. So then they set those dates so that school districts just couldn't call an election whenever they chose. They wanted to say, here's the dates you could do that. Now, last legislative session, and I'm going to get in the weeds here just a touch, but I don't want to confuse people. So PPEL elections can happen on those dates, but if you're going out for a general obligation bond, that can only happen in November. So they just changed that this past year.
So it's been renewed for so long, do you feel pretty confident that it probably will again this time?
I would say you feel confident if you look historically across the state. PPEL is in roughly 85% of districts, and I think the passage rate is somewhere even higher than that when you're renewing. So that gives you confidence, but it also just doesn't happen on its own. So we do have to get the word out about PPEL so that people know what it's for. Because like you said, it's been there for 10 years, so how many people is that that's never been through a PPEL vote or know what PPEL is? So you can have to continue to educate your patrons and your public about what PPEL is and the importance for us.
And to reiterate, it's just continuing what we already have. It's not an increase. It's not asking for any more money. It's just the same rate. And obviously, we all know our taxes went up a little bit last year for inflation and all the other things. So, but as far as what the school is asking, it's just, can we keep having what we've had for the past 10 years?
Correct. Okay. Yep. So it is an extension. We currently have a $1.34 PPEL voted levy. This vote is to extend it for another 10 years, so it'll still be that $1.34.
Great. If it does not pass, do you have another opportunity to bring it or propose like $1, do you have that option?
Yeah, you have that option, and obviously that would be up for the board, so I don't want to speak to them. But yeah, there are options there if it does not pass in March.
Back off for a second, because like you said that this is not an option for schools that haven't done it in the past. So if it did not get renewed, would you be able to,
Yep.
You can't bring it back up again?
So PPEL, all districts can still have. It's the PERL, the physical education recreation level. Yes, yep.
So
it is confusing because they are very, very similar.
And you were listening closely about Pearl.
Is the election just a straight majority? Just need over.
Yep. It is a simple majority of the 50% plus one. Anybody else? Good questions tonight.
Thank you for being with us and
allowing us to present at your PTO meeting tonight. So take care, everyone.
Thank you.